the controlled environment, having your world cultivated and controlled for you. The movie starts with a TV show-esque intro where you have different characters, different actors in the film, but also the characters of Truman's life speaking about their role and their feelings about the show. And his best friend says, wait, I love it. It's a great line. Nothing here is fake. It's just all controlled. And that's such an interesting way to approach our online world today. Maybe it's not all fake yet, but it is very controlled. And that's one way that we can consider, how do we go about our world when the knowledge that the information we're getting is increasingly controlled, particularly when so many of us get our information from social media. Last time I read a study, it was something like 62% of Americans get their news from social media. And we know, as we constantly make jokes on this podcast, social media as a means of disseminating information is increasingly controlled. The algorithm.
I mean, I am willing to talk about Gnosticism, the Demiurge, Rene Descartes' personal life, benign dictatorship, but
benign dictatorship.
In a spirit of humility, I must say, you know that I am no expert on social media.
Good for you.
I am no expert on social media. My whole thing about it has basically been, don't use it, delete it from your phone. And then you always say, I can't, and you make up reasons for why you can't. And one of them is valid.
One.
And the rest is not, in my opinion.
I like to think of social media as Descartes' digital demon. What if social media is the demon, Descartes' demon all along? What if social media is Christoph? What if we log on and we say, oh, look, here's the news. Oh, look, here are my buddies online. Oh, look, here is some random person commenting their ideas about something. Do you know that it's not a Chinese plant? Do you know that it's not a Russian bot? How do you know that it's not Twitter removing everything that could be a different view from what they think you want to see out of your view? And
so you don't know. The only way to approach that is to be skeptical about everything you see, which if you choose to do, is extraordinarily exhausting, mainly fruitless, and a recipe for mental illness. That is why I don't know. I mean, I don't suggest. I wonder if people enjoy it. That's the thing I don't understand.
No, they're miserable. That's the thing. They're miserable, but they're addicted to it. And it's a false sense of knowledge is what I think is so addicting, is that you log on and you feel like, I know something. I know something about my world. I've read something. I'm going to tell something. I'm going to tell someone what I know. I'm going to talk. I'm going to tell people what I know. It's all more illusions. The thing is, it's a fake world that we're increasingly spending more and more time on and treating like it's a real world. And it's a dangerous thing because once upon a time, you were a philosopher. You went out of your house. You went into the field and you said, look at this plant. What the fuck is this plant about?
Field.
What if I put this plant and I mixed it with this other plant? What would happen? And these things were in your fucking hand so you could test them. Now we go into our fake world and we take a headline about that plant and we say, hey, look, it says this plant does this. Okay, sure, maybe. You don't know. We don't know. It's all someone else's ideas. And that's fine. For the most part, we can, you have to check your sources. But what I do essentially is, unless I'm willing to do the research onto something, if I see a headline that says, Trump killed a baby today, if I'm not going to go read the article and then spend the time finding other articles to contrast that article against, and then try to find public opinion and see how that's swaying, and go to my trusted journalistic sources and see if they've commented on it. If I'm not going to do that, I strike it from the record of my knowledge, because that's what you have to do. Because today we're given so much information, and it's very easy to take in that information and be like, well, I heard Trump killed a baby. That's, I heard it. But we don't research it. We don't know anything. We don't check it. We just hear it. And that's it. We run with it. That's in a way, it's very irresponsible, and it's very dangerous because, one, it's not the real environment. It's not like you can go outside and say, well, it's raining. I see it because it's right here. I see the rain. We go online and it says, well, it's raining in this other place. Trust us. Maybe. I can't see that. I can't test it. So either you do the research on it, or really you don't know, and you should not accept a bunch of information that you haven't tested.
So don't believe the weather report.
Don't believe it.
There's, oh man, social media and me. That's the name of my new essay. Social media.
I don't like that.
And me.
Social media and me sounds like something for a baby, like a child's book that it's like, like, I don't know, like shapes and me. Something like it's supposed to be benign, but then it's social media and me, which is like, ooh, that sounds like a crackhead, confessional.
So I don't want to go too far off the track because we could talk about this a long time, and I clearly have a lot of skepticism and rage towards social media, even though I shouldn't really, because I don't participate in it enough to actually be annoyed by it.
Well, I annoy you enough by telling you about it. That's for sure. But you won't even have my annoyance. I tell you one thing and you treat me like I've told you all the news for the day that I've consumed, and I'll just say like someone left me a comment and you look at me like, oh.
Okay, all right. So let's just put it out there. I'll tell you why. And I made this analogy to you before. You telling me about you being annoyed, this will be helpful to the viewers.
Will it?
You telling me,
viewer me for them.
No, it's not for. It's not. Everyone does this. Everyone does this. I do it.
Should it be the listeners? It's a podcast. Just because we have video.
I do this too. This too. I'll pretend like it's me if you prefer. When if anyone could possibly believe this, when I call you and I'm like, oh my God. Someone just totally said this.
Okay, whoa. That's way worse than if it was just me.
Okay.
Just do it on me instead.
When you say something about being annoyed about something on Twitter there are so many steps removed from my own experience in life, I understand, and as your friend I listen. However, do you know how when you get something out of the refrigerator that is rotten and you start to eat it and it smells bad and you know that it's rotten and your first instinct is not to throw it away but to turn to your friend and be like, smell this. Isn't this rotten? And like, why? You know it is. You know it's terrible.
Want to share the burden.
Yeah.
Gotta share the burden.
I don't know.
Gotta show you how disgusting. There's a thrill. There's a thrill. We get on there and we look at the shit and it's disgusting and it's a disaster and it's like, look at that fucking train fire.
I just really do.
Slow down and look at the accident. Look at the car flipped over. Let's slow down. It's the same
worry
impulse.
about it. I actually do worry about it a little bit.
You should.
Because not you with regard to Twitter or whatever, but just. And then I see, but here's where I'm just going to start speculating about a dystopian future. And I mean, do we really need to do that?
Yes,
Would Renee Descartes? Okay. So I don't see how it's possible we're ever going to have a unifying narrative again, number one, any semblance of it. And we'll just talk about our country, America.
Yeah.
I don't see how that's ever possible. I also don't see how it's ever possible that we're not going to slowly descend into when virtual reality really starts to take off, when the headsets start coming down, like that there is going to be an industry arising to cater to the belief systems of separate communities who reside within entirely virtual communities.
So let me jump in there.
Maybe fine. Maybe it's peaceful enough if you keep them all separated. The problem is you can't link them up, because if you link them up, then there's going to be cyber warfare.
The newest game. Kill real people without actually killing them. God knows. God knows.
Only Christoph knows. That's why, maybe Sea Haven's the best.
Christoph knows. Well, here's the thing, is that already kind of exists in a way. So you already have, and this has been investigated in some capacity, the idea that the way algorithms are working online, and that's not only social media, that can be Google, even like search engines that rank results based on what they think you would like, based on what your search history is. This creates a kind of bubble. I think there's actually a term for it, filter bubble. And this idea, it's the idea of keep the customer happy, but this is also information. So once upon a time, we did have a more unifying narrative because there was not so many different sources of information. You had Walter Cronkite or something, and everybody turned on the same channel at the same time to receive the same news in the same way. So regardless of your individual politics, you still got the same story. You got the same narrative. Now you have the ability to just completely bypass even the traditional institutional media and kind of find your own little community of total disinformation, it could even be. And that can be where you get your news. That can be where you get information from. Some random blog with no sources. I mean, I've seen older adults share headlines with that if you follow the article and you look at the place that it's coming from, there's no author, there's no information about the website. I remember following an article once to see, well, is this true? This is pretty damning information if it's true. And I went to this website and there was nothing on it. It was just a website with articles and there was no information about the creators. So this is actually kind of scary. Because you have the ability now to end up in these bubbles where you only consume the information that supports your worldview. And so you have these algorithms that are working to facilitate that because we want to keep you on the page.
Can't you just sign out?
You seeing what you want. Well, you can sign out of Google.
Yeah, and then use because I've heard people do this, right?
I mean, your search history, the cookies, the cache on your browser.
But there's ways to get rid of all that and go browse the internet as essentially fresh person.
You can use a different search engine too, which is recommended. Use DuckDuckGo or something that's better. And
then see how it differs or whatever. But again,
yeah, exactly. And you'll see it does. I've done it before when there are certain things where I've searched on Google and then I've searched on DuckDuckGo, and it'll bring up different results that were not even on the same page as
not only that, go to YouTube. I did this recently. Go to YouTube. I'm usually just signed in. I of course it just puts everything like videos that I would clearly like about history or whatever. And then I signed out, and it's like there's just videos about like these people I've never seen. They're like 15 years old, like throwing Jello at each other or something. I don't even fucking know what is happening. It looks like it's entertainment for
Careful.
For children.
It
looks like it's entertainment for children.
Which is already disturbing.
I don't understand. I don't know.
Well, that's the scary thing is that you can end up in this weird rabbit hole where you log on. And I've done it. It's funny, though, because I
want to be in my rabbit hole, though.
Changes.
I saw what was outside, and it's
what if
Jello.
Your rabbit hole is the Jello shots party? What if your rabbit hole is you log in to your actual account and it's just everybody throwing Jello at each other and weird vlogs about people? I went to the store and I complain, and that's your whole world online, and you never see anything that, hey, this is interesting. I mean, it's a weird thing because it's this, it's also, I really detest. Exactly. I really detest this curatorial world where your world is curated for you. And this is something that comes a lot with, the age of the blog, where here are my favorite things, 10 of my favorite books. Here is my favorite playlist of music. Go find your own shit. You know, like, it's great to look at things like, oh, let's see what this person likes. I like their way they think. Like, what do you read? I think that's great. But you also have to be careful that you don't become dependent on this curatorial culture where everybody tells you what you should like. Here, what do you like this? Would you be interested in this? We think you'd like this. You know what? You don't have enough time to sit back and say, that tree reminds me of... Why does the tree's leaves look like that? That's interesting. I'm going to look at some independent research. I mean, go outside, have independent thoughts, and then do the research on those, and then follow through with that. And then you actually become a more creative, independent thinker instead of, constantly having things curated for you and fed to you.
But there is a problem of the expansion of knowledge that at such a rate. And I mean, look, there's a reason there are librarians. Yeah. Librarians are there to help guide you towards sources of information. You have to come up with the original question. This is what I'm interested in. I need help looking at this. That librarian is then going to move you towards that. Otherwise, you would be confronted with a vastness of thousands or hundreds of years of information about a given topic, and you wouldn't know where to begin. So there's got to be some sort of... The problem is that when the curator is actually genuinely trying to help you get to an answer to your questions, or when they're taking... ad revenue for clicks. See, that's where my concern comes in. Because I understand the necessity of people who are experts in a field of knowledge helping people towards answers to their questions, especially in a complex world. The problem is the motivations of those people. But you know how I feel about all this. Like, I always am just like, throw your phone off into the ocean. That's my... you say things, I'm just like, just turn it off. And I don't know if it's helpful because you know what? I only follow my own advice half the time. I oftentimes, and that's you. And that's me. And I am a surly, angry, like kind of,
And you're older too, which is people that were raised with the phone. No.
Let's not get into ageism.
No, there's a certain generation, and I am of this generation too. I think I'm the last of this generation. I didn't get my smartphone until I was like 21, something like that. And I didn't really start using social media on it until like later, even in that year. I didn't really get into it. And Twitter, I didn't even start using it for years later. That was the beginning of the end. But... now we have generations that, you get the phone before you can even talk. And it's like you give the kid the phone as a way to pacify them. Not that they're making a social media account if they can't talk, but once they can talk, they make these accounts. And you have kids that are they're like 13 and they have social media. And what you're going to give your 12-year-old, your 13-year-old a crash course in telling what's disinformation and understanding that the algorithm is influencing what they see and that necessarily what they see isn't the whole understanding of the world, but merely a curated version of that world, and that they have to make a conscious effort to question what's left out, but they have to first conceive of what might be left out every time they gain information. I mean, that's insane. That's insane. That's beyond what even most adults can use their cognitive processes to do with the information that we're getting through these phones.
You can do it, but it's just too time consuming and it's too
that's the thing.
Tired. Yeah. It makes you...
And that's why I come back to my principle, which is if I don't do the research, I don't accept the information. It's not, I just don't.
But then you also, I think, have to take another step, ideally, and say, I don't even want the information to hit my eyeballs.
That's the other thing. Yeah. And that's
but that's dangerous. I mean, you in theory want to find a balance between, I don't know. I mean, you know what? I'm not going to solve social media. The problem is this. The thing that really I wonder about is no one seems happy with it anymore. That's the thing that really makes me suspicious. And maybe I seem more grumpy about it. And maybe I seem slightly more concerned, or you do also. But everyone I talk to...
No one enjoys it.
No one enjoys it. So why... So what's going to happen is my question. Are we going to reach a point where
How does it end?
Where somehow people disconnect entirely to this, if it just makes them feel irritable and angry, even if they're addicted? Or are we just going to slowly accept it and live in a world of irritability and disinformation and anger? And unfortunately, that seems like the most likely thing.
You know, I think it's hard because there are waves of people. There are kind of like different tiers of people that are having different relationships with social media. For someone like me that's been pretty online for a few years and uses it in a more professional capacity to promote things and blah, blah, blah. I'm already at the stage of disillusionment that I know it is both for my health and for my own productivity, for my own ability to further my career and myself as a human being, that I have to distance myself. And I'm losing interest in it. I'm genuinely losing interest in using these things. So that's one existence.
We should know something that you also tell me, because you do complain a lot about it. But you know what you also say? You say, hey, I got a message from somebody that really liked my newsletter, and it meant a lot to me that this person, has reached out. So there are good, and I'm old enough, as you point out, to remember an earlier incarnation of the internet that did not have to do with social media. And there was an idealism and a feeling that this is going to revolutionize communication, let people, affinity groups, speak to one another over distances that wouldn't be easy to cover. Like there are good things about it. My problem isn't with the internet. My problem is with social media, because I think that it is not ultimately meant to make you happy, healthy, secure, better, anything. I think that it's meant to make you're just a piece of iron ore to be mined by people and then be sold off. That's what I really think it is. And at the end of the day, that is what it is.
Yeah, I mean,
not? Have I just gone
agree.
Totally,
I mean, look, at this point, there are certain social media applications that are a danger to even use. So something like Twitter, you use that wrong, and if forget it, whatever, it doesn't matter, your career can end your career. If you say something that's slightly controversial, or not even controversial, but worded incorrectly, and it gets picked up by the wrong account that has enough followers, that can be it can cause you personal strife in your real world life. So it gets to a question of, is it even worth dabbling in something like that? There's an application like Instagram is a little less risky. I actually find that I'm liking Instagram more because it doesn't have as many of the character limits on the comments that Twitter does. So Twitter is almost perfectly designed to be inflammatory and to heighten a horrible culture. Everything is the communication is limited, and it can be passed along throughout as wide a community as Twitter can be, which doesn't really make sense for any type of quality in terms of discussion or connection. It's more like a massive, unstable village. And that's not really a place you want to kind of hang out. Whereas Instagram at this point is more, it's image-based, and there's even the comments, you have an ability to communicate a little more deeply, and so you don't get as much of the miscommunication too. I know there's sometimes people send me something on Twitter and it sounds a little snarky, but I give them a benefit of the doubt because there's no space in the comment for them to, I constantly have to cut out, I think, I could be wrong, my idea. I have to cut all that out, all those kind of like humility markers and the little bit of nuance that you add into a conversation to show that, well, I'm open to being wrong about this. I'm open to discussion. Instead, I have to write, the thing is this, instead of saying, well, I think possibly the thing could be. So by the nature of just the limit upon communication that Twitter has, it's not a good medium for connecting with people. I mean, I at this point, I log on to Twitter twice a week to answer people that are communicating with me in good faith, and that's it. I don't go on there, and I schedule all my posts through another program, and I don't go on more than twice a week for 20 minutes each time, just to answer people. And that's it. And still, the other night I went on to do that, and there was still someone had left a quote under one of my tweets. Nice quote, fine, Bertrand Russell, cool. And someone was like, Bertrand Russell is a piece of shit who couldn't have done anything in his life if he fucking tried. He's the garbage can, and you should run back to your junior college because obviously you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, and you're just a shitty. And it's like, buddy, what are you doing? Like, what is this asylum? It's like a fucking asylum. You get on there and it's like a zoo of people that are just unleashing their pent up frustration with life onto fucking avatars with strangers that are like, what are you, probably lashing out back at them. It's a very dark culture.